Ghoul by Suisui the Mark. A simple act, a reason, a meaning. From one's end to one's beginning. Chapter 0. Thoughts. Strolling through the sandy city, I saw people turning around, doors and windows being locked. Birds were loudly scattering all over the blue sky, yelling something I could not understand. Then, soon after, the city became quiet as if dead, save for the occasional dog, which had it in its nature to bark as loudly as it physically could, in the vain hope of scaring off the unwanted visitor. Dogs are surprisingly loyal creatures. They would often throw away their own lives to protect their human partners, knowing fully well how meaningless their sacrifice would prove to be in the end. Yet, interestingly enough, those same humans seem to most often do the exact opposite. They would give up anything and anyone else just to raise their own survival rate by an imperceptible amount. One could think of that act as vile or cowardly, but I will not judge them. I'm not fit to do so, for I am not and will never be like them. I can't understand the way they think or act, and my values differ too greatly from theirs. Yet, I still do find that relationship quite fascinating. While engrossed in such meaningless thoughts, I continued walking around the now empty city, searching for a sign of life. But at this point in time, even the dogs had ceased their ruckus. The city was painted scarlet, as blood was gradually seeping through the surface layer of sand. My hunger, finally appeased, left my mind cleared and focused, and I was able to properly take in the landscape in all its details. A beautiful city, I thought to myself, but beauty was a concept I was not familiar with and had just now learned of. Beautiful, yes, indeed. But what is beauty if not a subjective attraction, a subconscious decision of the mind, which, perceiving some information, looks in it for positive reassurance based loosely on the preconceptions in one's memory, and finally forms a meaningless judgment? Meaningless, yes, and yet many creatures live as if enslaved by this concept, this ideal, this farce. They aim to reach an uncertain level of beauty, sometimes to appease others, other times to placate their own minds. They look for value in something as superficial as beauty, and evaluate themselves and their surroundings based off this one quality. A privilege reliant on boredom. But if that's the case, could there be such a thing as true objective beauty? You could reach a shallow conclusion by defining such beauty according to the likes of most, but that would be nothing more than a clump of easily malleable, subjective ideas born of a mix of one's personal life experiences and genetics. Beautiful. Such an incoherent and illogical word, but that is exactly what makes it so fascinating. Yes, fascinating. Some creatures became smart enough to realize the tedium of their repetitive way of life and thought it better if spiced up with a race towards beauty. Everything will be gone and forgotten in due time anyway, so none of this really matters. I lay down on my back and stared up at the cloudless sky, my skin in direct contact with the scorching midday desert sand. Cyans and blues amalgamated, creating deep contrasts with these golden sands, splattered with in parts bright and in parts discolored blood. Memories not mine kept disorderly flowing through my head like a flooded river, submerging my mind and permeating my thoughts. Could you call those thoughts even mine, if that's the case? Sadness, fear, joy, ire, and many other emotions, all being lived in a short instant, quick enough to be barely perceivable, and yet leaving a deep and indelible scar. At some point, the sun had set without me noticing. I was pulled away from my thoughts by something tickling my throat. I spat it out, and a patch of white tinted fur lay so on the ground in front of me. I thought nothing of it and stood back up. There was much more to see in this world, and even more to understand. I started walking towards the direction of the brightest star.